I find I can get information so fast, and it's accurate and it's to the point. One of
Yeah.
the key things that you need to know, though, and very few people know this, to make tarot work, you have to ask the right question.
Right.
If you ask a series of questions, but they're the wrong questions, you won't get far. You'll get a little bit further down the path. And so one of the first things I do when someone comes for a consultation, they say, I want a tarot reading and I have this question. I talk to them about the question. It's like, is that the right question? Is this what you're actually really looking for? And is this what you need?
Right.
And at least half the time through the discussion, we discover through the conversation that actually they're asking sort of the wrong question. That's not
Interesting.
really what they want. That's just what
Yeah.
they're presenting.
Right. Huh. That makes sense.
Yeah. So before I do any important readings, I always sit down and meditate and I ask my guides, is this the right question? And again, half the time they're like, well, you're close, but you're not quite on. And sometimes it's like, yes, that's absolutely the right question. So if it's the right question, that's fine. I go ahead. But if they're like, well, you're close, but you're not, that's not actually it, then I'll sit and meditate. And it's like, okay, so what am I really asking here? What am I really looking for? What is my foundational need? And very few people are good at doing that. Interestingly, we're human beings are not taught to do this. I mean, it's actually healthy psychologically, but
To
yeah,
get
we're
down
not.
to the basic, like what is actually driving the question.
Yeah, and what is my foundational intention? What is my intention here, and what is my foundational need? What am I looking for? What do I want to happen?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very interesting, especially for some reason business people. I don't know why. I mean, I've done all kinds of readings for all kinds of people, but business people often arrive with a question, and when I talk to them about it, it ends up being like, that's not really what you're here for. And they modify it or change it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Got a fabulous example of that. I did a reading years ago. This was at a festival, so it was like a crowded hall. It was the Mind, Body, and Spirit Festival a long time ago. And I was like 6 days into a 12-day event. So I was well established in my little corner of the hall, thousands of people wandering around, hundreds of people doing readings and, yoga demonstrations and martial arts stuff and all that kind of good stuff.
Where was that in Seattle?
No, that was in London, UK. That was a long time ago. Back late, mid 80s, somewhere around there.
Cool.
And this very well-dressed guy in this suit and tie and bowler hat sat down. And I was like, wow, that's different because I had long hair. I was hippie-like and I was smoking a roll-up. I don't smoke anymore. So we were like opposite archetypes. I'm like, this is going to be interesting. And he sat down.
There.
He said the first words out of his mouth was, I don't believe in tarot. I was like, okay. But he said, so many people, some of my friends have recommended you. I have to come and have a reading.
Nice.
I'm like, okay. And he said, I'm in the middle of this battle with these two other business people, and I want to know how to win. I was like, so that's your question? He was like, yes. We're going to court in a couple of weeks' time, and it's very important. There's millions of pounds at stake. I have to win this. And so I started talking to him like, okay, so what happens if you win? And he's like, I get lots of money and they get screwed. And what happens if you lose? He said, I lose all my money and I lose my business and everything. I was like, wow, big stakes, huh? He was like, yes, very important. And I talked to him about, is this really the question that you want to ask? Because I was like, well, that's a very narrow question,
Yeah.
I'd be more interested in looking at what is the whole situation here. And he was like, what? And anyway, after 10 minutes or so, he was like, okay, let's look at the whole situation then. And as soon as I put the cards out, I mean, he had a whole series of really heavy duty cards. And I said, oh God, you're in this karmic cycle with these two other people. And you've done this before repeatedly, many, many times. Sometimes they win, sometimes you win, sometimes you both screw each other and nobody wins.
Right.
But like this has been going on for like centuries. Like you've done this so many times. This is ridiculous. And like it's just an endless, ongoing karmic cycle. And after I explained all that to him, he was stunned because he could feel it. He knew it was true. And he was just
Wow.
speechless. And there was this long silence. I mean,
Oh,
literally 5 minutes of complete silence, which I didn't break. I just sat there drinking my tea and smoking my roller. Whilst he kind of absorbed it, he needed the time to like take it in.
yeah.
And eventually he said, "Oh my God." He said, "You're right. This is terrible. Like, this is insane." I said, "Yeah, it's pretty fucking insane. I wouldn't want to be in this trip." And he was like, eventually, after, we talked about it and all the, some of the more details, he was like, "Is there a way to break this?" I was like, "Of course." And he was like, "Let's talk about how to stop this stupidity."
Hmm.
And so we had this long conversation. And I said, "Well, you're deeply entrenched in this insane karmic encounter, which means, you're either going to win and you're going to lose. If you win, you screw the other people and they're going to hate you for the rest of your life. And next time around, they're probably going to win."
Right.
So, it's actually a no-win situation. Everybody loses eventually in the end. And he said, yeah, he could see that. So then we talked about what he would need to do. And what I told him was the last thing he wanted to hear, which was, I said, if you want to stop this negative karmic cycle and this ongoing financial business conflict that's been going on through many, many lifetimes, you need to swallow your pride, take your ego in hand, like take control of it,
Hmm.
because his ego just wanted to win at any cost.
Right.
Doesn't matter. And I said, you're going to actually have to do something mature and responsible, which is go to them and apologize.
Right.
I could see him. He was so angry. He was like, oh. It was like his ego, like, there's no way I'm going to apologize to these bastards,
Yeah.
And yet he was aware on a high level. He was like, I have to apologize.
Right.
So again, I gave him like 5 minutes to like have his reactions.
Yeah.
And he said, so what happens if I don't apologize, if I just go ahead and fight the court case? I said, you're in the same karmic cycle.
Right.
I said, this time you'll win 80%. You want to have 100% win, but that's just where it's at. Whereas if you go and apologize to them and say, hey, can we stop doing this now? This is crazy. It's insane. Nobody gains.
Yeah.
We're just fucking each other over repeatedly. Right. I said, you have a chance. They might just say, oh, yeah, okay. And I said, even if they don't, you can still step out of that karmic cycle. Mm-hmm. You have the power and the freedom to do that.
Right.
And I explained all that to him. And eventually he ended up like, I'm going to contact the other party's lawyers. I'm going to tell my lawyer to contact the other party's lawyers and see if we can call a truce. And I said, be careful, because the lawyers are going to lose a lot of money. So they're not going to want to do that. So you're going to have to force the lawyers to do this.
Right.
And he was like, what? And it turned out that was true. I worked with him for several months and I walked him through the whole process. And it worked. The other two parties, after they were like, first of all, they didn't believe him. They thought it was a trap.
Yeah.
But when they actually sat around the table and he apologized to the two other people, they were so shocked. They were like, oh my God. And they went away and thought about it. And they both came back and said, we accept your apology. How about we just drop everything? Like, just walk away from this.
Wow. That's
and they
amazing.
did. And that was this. And it wasn't just these three guys in London, UK. It was like all their organizations. There were thousands of people involved in it. Huh. And all this energy, like how are we going to beat the other people? Right. And it was a 3-week contest. It's just that the other two had aligned themselves temporarily to try and beat this guy. But yeah, the initial question he came to ask was, how can I win? And it was like, that's not the real question.
Right.